Britney Spears, shackled by law. Britney Spears was never just a pop star. She was the pop star. At the turn of the millennium, her music, her face, and her every move saturated the global imagination. She wasn't just famous, she was infrastructure, an entire industry wrapped around one young woman from Louisiana. And that made her vulnerable in ways few could imagine. From the beginning, Britney's rise was meteoric. Baby One More Time sold over 10 million copies in its first year. Her tours sold out stadiums worldwide. She was hailed as the Princess of Pop, a title that carried with it both cultural dominance and relentless scrutiny. Every hairstyle, every outfit, every ounce of weight gained or lost became public property. And then came the ridicule. When she broke down in tears during interviews, she was labeled unstable. When she shaved her head in 2007, a symbolic act of defiance against an industry that had monetized her appearance since she was a teenager, the tabloids turned it into a global joke. Paparazzi hounded her like prey, swarming her car, blocking her from leaving her home, following her into bathrooms. Every crack in her humanity was magnified until it looked like collapse. In 2008, the hazing took its cruelest form. Britney Spears was placed under a conservatorship. For over 13 years, she lived without legal control over her own body, her finances, or her career. The machinery of control. Conservatorships are intended for the elderly and the incapacitated, people unable to make decisions for themselves. Britney Spears was a young woman at the height of her earning power, filling arenas and recording albums that generated hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet on paper, she was treated as if she were incapable of functioning. The details are staggering. Her father, Jamie Spears, was granted legal authority over her estate and person. That meant Britney could not sign contracts, could not spend her own money, could not hire her own lawyer without approval. Reports later revealed even more disturbing controls. She was forced to keep an IUD against her will, preventing her from having more children. She was medicated, sometimes against her consent. And she was compelled to perform, including a Las Vegas residency that grossed over $130 million, while being told she was too unwell to manage her own life. It was legalized exploitation, a system that profited from her genius while declaring her incompetent. She earned an estimated $60 million during her conservatorship, yet she could not buy a coffee without permission. Hazing made legal. What happened to Britney Spears was hazing institutionalized. For centuries, societies mocked and persecuted their geniuses with ridicule, exile, or neglect. In Britney's case, it was codified into law. The court system became the mechanism of her hazing, turning her into property while still parading her on stage. The cruelty was amplified by media complicity. For years, late-night shows and gossip magazines painted her as a punchline, not a prisoner. What should have been recognized as a human rights violation was instead consumed as entertainment. The resistance. Chastear's Free Britney. But Britney's case was not forgotten. Fans noticed contradictions. How could someone incapable of making her own choices simultaneously sustain a global career? They began to question the conservatorship, dissecting court filings, interviews, and her cryptic social media posts. The Free Britney movement grew from a whisper on fan forums into a global campaign. Protesters gathered outside courthouses. Hashtags went viral. Documentaries exposed the abuses of the arrangement. For once, hazing met resistance. In June 2021, Britney herself spoke in open court. Her testimony was shattering. She described being forced to perform, medicated against her will, and denied the ability to remove her IUD. "I just want my life back," she said. Her words broke through the narrative that she was unstable. They revealed what she truly was: imprisoned. By November 2021, the conservatorship was terminated. For the first time in over a decade, Britney Spears regained control of her life. Survival against the pattern. Britney's story is both tragedy and survival. For 13 years, she was hazed at the highest possible level, not just mocked, not just stalked, but legally bound and exploited. And yet, she survived it. Unlike Van Gogh, unlike Sylvia Plath, Unlike Kurt Cobain or Amy Winehouse, Britney Spears lived to see her chains broken. She endured ridicule, bondage, and betrayal, and emerged alive. That survival matters, because it proves that hazing, even at its cruelest, can be resisted when truth is revealed and collective voices demand justice. Her case is not only about pop stardom, it is a window into how societies treat women's bodies, how industries treat talent, and how courts can be weaponized against genius. Britney Spears' life became a test of how much exploitation a single person could endure while still generating wealth for others. And in the end, she exposed the system that tried to consume her. Legacy of Shackles. The question now is how history will remember her, as a punchline or as proof that hazing can be unmasked, as a cautionary tale or as a precedent for others trapped in similar systems. Britney Spears is not just the princess of pop. She is the first great whose hazing became a legal case study in global view. Her victory is incomplete. The years lost cannot be restored. But her survival is undeniable. And for the first time, perhaps, the world was forced to admit that the spectacle wasn't madness. It was abuse. Britney's story shows us the full spectrum of hazing. The mockery, the contracts, the control, and the resistance. She was shackled by law, yet survived to tell the story. And in telling it, she forced us all to confront the question: how many more must be bound, mocked, or destroyed before we learn to let genius live?